We're going to talk about everything that you did. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the homework. And I'm going to talk about that homework that was online. All right. You guys were looking for, no, let's talk about the sheet first, excuse me. And the charts first. So you guys were looking for that graph to give you the actual parabola right then, correct? And if it didn't give you that parabola right then, you think I must have done something wrong. No, you did not do anything wrong. I limited what points you could use. I told you use negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3, correct? And if I only gave you those points, you may have only seen one portion of the graph. And what I mean by that is this. If I only gave you certain points and the graph ended up looking something like this, was over in this side right here, I only gave you points negative 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So you may have only gotten points that ended up on this side, like, because this line actually goes like this. Some points up here, all right, so it don't look like this. That was fine. I just wanted to make sure you knew how to plug it in correctly, and complete the chart. So it may have looked like this, which would be fine. You've only had those points. It may not have looked all the way like this, because if I had a graph that was over here, in order to see this minimum value of this vertex, I actually needed negative 7. I didn't give you negative 7. I didn't tell you to use negative 7. I told you to use negative 1 only. Right? So I really just wanted you to plug it in just to get the values. Right? That's all I wanted you to do. You also could have checked it. Does anybody know how to check it? Check it using your calculator. If you take your calculator and you go into the graph mode in your calculator and you put that equation in, you hit enter. It's going to graph that parabola. Right? After you hit graph that parabola, hit list. If you hit list, it gives you all the coordinate points. And when you see all the coordinate points, check the coordinate points with your points, because you have the x values. If you look at the list of your x values, you can see if your coordinate point is right. That's how you can check it, to make sure you're right. So, take out your calculator now. And in your calculator, put this equation, which is the very first equation. Put that equation in. So go to graph. When you hit graph, it comes up with a screen that says y equals, correct?
Yeah, it says y equals.
Oh, it says y, I'm sorry, hit y equals. All right, yeah, hit y equals first, I'm sorry. Now it comes up with a screen that says y equals. Put that equation in, just as you see. You don't have to put the f of x in, because the f of x is substituted in for what? For y. So put that equation in, x squared plus 5x plus 6. Then hit graph. It's going to graph the equation. Yes.
Mine says something window ring. I got this one like a straight line. Oh, I got one. Oh, wait. I got it.
You're going to reset your calculator.
I did it very wrong on the paper. Oh, wait.
So I forgot how to reset your calculator. Reset your calculator if the zoom is too far. You see it? All right. So now once you get the graph, hit the button that says list. Or it says table. Or which one did you say? Some say list, some say table. So hit the second button and table, and it lists the whole table. Do you have it? So now when you see the table, now look at your values. I told you to use the values -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Go to the x-coordinate, look at -1. Do you have the correct number in? Did you find the correct? Look at 2 or 0. Do you have the right thing? Yes, ma'am.
After you got the graph, press second graph. Mine's all written. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's it. All right, do you see the list? Does everybody see how to use the list? I told you at the beginning, and I'm telling you for yoga, if you do not have a graphing calculator, you need to get a graphing calculator, right? This graphing calculator pays great dividends in this class in order to use it, right? And you also get to use this on the ACT. So if you get to use this on the ACT, you definitely need to have that calculator so you're familiar with how to work it, all right? So now you can check all of your tables by doing what? What I just showed you, all right? You can check them all just to make sure it's right. Everybody understand that? So was that difficult? All right, so now we understand that part of it. All right, so we're gonna go to the second. Go to the back page for a second. So on pages problems 5 through 8, I want you to find the axis of symmetry. I want you to find the y-intercept, and I ask you to find the vertex. Correct? With those 3 pieces of information, I could graph an equation. But you didn't have to graph any equations on the back of the page. I didn't want you to graph anything. All right, I just want you to find it. All right, so we talked about the axis of symmetry. And I'm just going to put axis of symmetry. I told you it is equation, -1 over b times 2 times a. All right, so if my equation is in this form, I need to know what the value of A is, the value of B is, and the value of C. That's all you have to do. Just take it out. What's the value of A, B, and C? Which number cannot be 0? A cannot be 0. Can B be 0? Yes. Can C be 0? Yes. The only one that can't be 0 is A. A cannot be 0. All right. So if I know that, I can plug it in. This is a -1 multiplied times whatever that is. So you have to remember that you can't just forget that that's a negative sign out there. All right. So that's my axis of symmetry. Then we can find my y-intercept, which I could have done first. My y-intercept is going to be 0 and what? Whatever the value of C is. Now that only applies to these quadratics in this form, which is called, it's a standard form of a quadratic. It only applies to that. But in that, all I have to do is find what C is. C is right there in front of me, so there's no reason that anybody's C blank should be empty. Right? So the y-intercept is always 0. C, that's coordinate point for it. And then finally, we have to find the vertex. So let's talk about the vertex. The x-coordinate in the vertex is your axis of symmetry, whatever it happens to be. Right? Because the axis of symmetry, the equation actually says x is equal to -b over 2 times a. So that's the x value of the vertex. How do I find the y value? I take this number, whatever it is, and I plug it into the equation. And whatever I get when I solve it is my value of y. That's all that 5, 6, 7, and 8 took you to do. All right? I'm actually going to post the answers online, but we'll talk about it in class in a second.
What are decimals? Someone don't like decimals in fact.
Yeah. You do, you did get decimals, right? This is advanced math. You're going to get decimals, negative radicals, right? Fractions, all that. We work with all of that. We don't just have whole numbers. We don't, all right? So you will get decimals. In fact, all of them should have given you decimals, correct?
No. I didn't get it for 7.
No, 7 didn't give you a decimal, and 8 didn't give you a decimal.
But 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I mean,
5 and 6. All right. So everybody understand this part, what we were trying to do here. All right. So then the last page, the last ones, asks you to find if it was a maximum or a minimum. We talked about this. If the value of A is greater than 0, the parabola opens which way? Somebody.
Up.
It opens what?
Up.
It opens upwards. Alright? So that means that you have what kind of value?
Minimum value.
A minimum value. So what should have been circled, if I had anything in the place of A, any number, 1 or above, I should have just circled what? Minimum. If A is less than 0, which means I got a negative number there, it opens downwards, and what should have been circled?
Maximum.
Maximum. Right? Maximum should have been circled. So did it take any math to do that? All you have to do is really just look at the equation. Now the next part takes math.
Yeah.
So we have to find that minimum or that maximum value, which requires us, in order to find this value, we need to find the vertex. Which I just told you how to do.
Axis.
How do I find the vertex? What's the first thing I got to find? The axis of symmetry. So if I need to find the vertex, I got to find the axis of symmetry. Alright? Then after I find the axis of symmetry, which we just said is what coordinate?
The axis of symmetry, do you put in the original problem? Like, okay, it says, for example, F0 equals 3 0 squared plus 12 plus 8.
You put it in the original problem. You substitute it in for x.
So before we put all the numbers in there, we just put the original one, like, so what's x?
You got to put it in for x. Once you find that value of x, whatever that value of x is, you plug it in for that equation. That value of x in that equation is whatever you find. It doesn't change. Alright, so it's whatever you find.
So you find that in the axis of symmetry?
That is the
Then
axis
you
of
plug
symmetry.
it in?
Then you plug it in.
And then you do this?
Then you, once you plug it in, you're going to find this answer. This is how you find it. Alright, so once I find the axis of symmetry, which is going to be my x coordinate on my vertex, then I plug it in and I find the y. And whatever that y is what? That maximum or that minimum value. So in short, what do you need to know right now? You need to know how to find the axis of symmetry. You need to know how to find the y-intercept. And you need to know how to find the vertex. If you don't know how to find any of those three, you're not going to do very well in this quiz. All right? So we have to be able to find all three of them. We've talked about it. So the axis of symmetry has a formula. The equation itself is given to you. You just got to plug it in. All right? So you have to be able to find all three. After that, I'm going to plug in the numbers that I need to find that value of y.